Hi, happy Tuesday. I hope you're having a great day today. I've got some cool stuff to look at with you all, and we're going to talk about some new math concepts. But first, I wanted to read this book about looking out the window. I absolutely loved this book. It's called The Hello Goodbye Window. Let's look at the backside. Isn't that beautiful? The pictures are so cool. Let's look at this. The Hello Goodbye Window. It says the Hello Goodbye Window. Nana and Poppy live in a big house in the middle of town. There's a brick path that goes to the back porch, but before you get there, you pass right by the kitchen window. That's the Hello Goodbye Window. It looks like a regular window, but it's not. Okay, that's their house, and right there is the Hello Goodbye Window. The kitchen is where Nana and Poppy are most of the time, so you can climb up on the flour barrel and tap on the window. Then duck down and they won't know who did it. Or you can press your face against the glass and frighten them. If they're not in the kitchen, you can't do any of those things and you have to wait until next time. If they see you first, they wave and make silly faces. Sometimes Nana peekaboos me, which always makes me laugh. So I get a lot of extra fun and hellos before I even get inside. And that's her looking in the window to her Nana and Poppy. Just look at the kitchen. It's so big. It has a table you can color on and lots of drawers to take stuff out and play with. But you can't touch anything under the sink. You could get very sick. So that's really good advice. We can't touch anything under the sink. We have to be safe. There are shelves full of glass jars with lots of everything in them. A step stool so I can wash my hands and all kinds of pictures from the olden days. Nana says she even used to give me a bath in the sink when I was little. Really? Sometimes Poppy plays his harmonica for me. He can only play one song, Oh Susanna, but he can play it in a lot of different ways. He can play it slow or fast, or he can play it sitting down or standing up. He says he can even play it and drink a glass of water at the same time, but I've never seen him do that. When I stay over at our house for supper in the kitchen too, and when it's dark outside, we can look out at our reflections in the window. It works just like a mirror, but it's not in the bathroom, and it looks like we're outside looking in. Poppy says, "What are you doing out there? You come right in and have your dinner." And I say, "But I'm here with you, Poppy." And then he looks at me in this funny way. And that's Poppy and her laughing together. Just before I go up to bed, Nana turns off all the lights and we stand by the window and say goodnight to the stars. Do you know how many stars there are? Neither do I, but she knows them all. In the morning, the first place we go is back to the kitchen, and there's the window waiting for us. You can look out and say good morning to the garden, or see if it's going to be rain or be nice. And you can see the dog next door. Sometimes Poppy says in a real loud voice, "Hello, world, what have you got for us today?" No one ever answers, but he doesn't care. That's Poppy saying, "Hello, world, what do you have for us today?" Poppy makes breakfast. He says it's his specialty. My favorite is oatmeal with bananas and raisins that you can't see because he hides them down inside. I find them all. When I get dressed, I help Nana in the garden. It's a very nice garden, but there's a tiger who lives behind the big bush in the back, so I don't ever go there. I don't think this is a tiger. I think it's a little cat. That's their garden right there. That's her and her Nana on the other side. I ride my bike too. Not in the street, please. Or collect sticks and acorns. Not in the house, please. Or just kick my ball around, sometimes when it's hot. Poppy chases me with the hose and I yell, "Stop it, Poppy, stop it." But when he does, I ask him to do it again. Nana just shakes her head. When I get tired, I come in and take my nap and nothing changes until I get up. That's her taking her nap. Then sometimes I just sit by the hello goodbye window and watch. Nana says it's a magic window and anybody can come along when you least expect it. Tyrannosaurus Rex. He's extinct, so he doesn't come around much. Okay, that's her making a little joke right there. And that's a dinosaur looking through the window. That's silly, isn't it? The pizza delivery guy, pepperoni and cheese. He knows that's my favorite. The Queen of England, Nana is English, you know, so the Queen likes to come for teas. They could all come, and a lot more if they want. And if they do, I'll see them first. Mommy and Daddy pick me up after work. I'm glad because I know we're going home, but it makes me sad too because I have to leave Nana and Poppy. You can be happy and sad at the same time, you know. It just happens that way sometimes. Yeah, we can be happy and sad all at the same time. And that's okay. When we leave, we always stop at the window to blow kisses goodbye. When you look from the outside, Nana and Poppy's house has lots of windows, but there's only one hello goodbye window, and it's right where you need it. There we go. Where's the window? The window's right there. When I get my own house someday, I'm going to have a special hello goodbye window too. By that time, I might be a Nana myself. I don't know who the Poppy will be, but I hope he can play the harmonica. I thought this book was spectacular. I absolutely loved it. It's called The Hello Goodbye Window. This week, we're talking all about new math concepts. So I wanted to show you all something. This is something artists and mathematicians both use. It's called a grid. Let's look at this. This is a grid right here. And we could number that grid. We could say 1, 2, 3, 4, and we could say A, B, C. So we could say, which square is B2? That would be B2 right there. A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 4. Mathematicians use grids and artists. Here's an example. Do you see right up here how it's gridded? When we reproduce it, we'll put this box right in this box. Artists use grids a lot. It's super helpful. I make tapestries on my loom, and I just finished a sunset, but the next one I want to work on is this pond. I just cut it out of a magazine. I thought this would make such a pretty tapestry. I'm not going to put this part right here that says neighboring ponds. I'm going to leave that out. But with this grid, I know this whole area is green, and this area right here, it's mostly green, but there's a little bit of the pond in it. With grids, you can really get everything perfect. You don't have to worry about things getting too out of proportion. Today, I want you to find a magazine or a picture and make it into a grid. Try to reproduce it. Use some of these concepts and let's try to embrace it. I've got one other book I wanted to look at with you all today, and it's another fun book. It's called Balloons Over Broadway. That's a balloon right up there. Let's look at this together. The true story of the puppeteer of Macy's Parade. Oh, parades are a lot of fun. Balloons Over Broadway. Anthony Tony Frederick Sarg. And this is the year he was born, right here. And this is when he passed away. This book is about him. Every little movement has a meaning of its own. And that's his quote. From the time he was a little boy, Tony Sarg loved to figure out how to make things move. He once said he'd become a marionette man when he was only 6 years old. So he's doing puppets right there. His father had asked him to feed their chickens at 6:30 in the morning every day. Tony had an idea. What if he could feed the chickens without leaving his bed? He rigged up some pulleys and ran a rope from the chicken coop door to his bedroom window. That night, he spread chicken feed outside the chicken coop door. The next morning, Tony pulled on the rope and the door to the chicken coop opened. The chickens ate their breakfast. Tony stayed snug in his bed, and his dad, so impressed, never made Tony do another chore. See, that's him pulling the string right there. When Tony grew up, he moved to London, where he discovered that no one was making marionettes for kids anymore. So out of wood, cloth, and strings, Tony began to make puppets. He figured out ways to make his marionettes' movements so lifelike that they performed as if they were real actors. Word soon spread about Tony's amazing marionettes. When Tony moved to New York City, the Tony Sarg marionettes began performing on Broadway. That's a very famous street in New York. In the heart of New York City, in Herald Square, was the biggest store on earth, R.H. Macy's department store. Macy had heard about Tony's puppets and asked him to design a puppet parade for the store's holiday windows. So Tony made new puppets based on the storybook characters, then attached them to gears and pulleys to make them move. How cool is that? It's Macy's Wondertown windows. Tony's mechanical marionettes danced across the stage as if by magic. All day long, they performed to shoppers jostling for a better look. Over here it says, but Macy's had an even bigger job in store for Tony. Many of the people working at Macy's were new to America, and the holidays approached, they missed their own holiday traditions of music and dancing in the streets. Macy's agreed to put on a parade for their employees, and they hired Tony to help. Tony, too, was new to America, so he loved the idea of creating a parade based on the street carnivals from all over the world. He made costumes and built horse-drawn floats, and Macy's even arranged to bring in bears, elephants, and camels from the Central Park Zoo. How cool. And that's Tony figuring out how to put it all together. Let's look at the next page. The animals joined hundreds of Macy's employees on Thanksgiving Day, 1924, winding their way from Harlem to Herald Square. It was a dazzling parade. In fact, Macy's first parade was such a success that they decided to have one every year on Thanksgiving Day to celebrate America's own holiday. That's the parade right there. I love parades. Each year the parade grew, but when Macy's brought in lions and tigers In addition to bears, elephants, and camels, the animals roared and growled and frightened the children. And then, let's look at this one. Macy's asked Tony to replace the animals. So here's the original animals right there. And then this is Mr. Macy right there calling Tony. Can we replace the animals? Let's see what happens. Tony hoped to replace the animals with some kinds of puppets, but his marionettes were less than 3 feet tall. He would have to make much larger puppets in order for them to be seen in the parade. And how could he make them strong enough to hold up in bad weather, yet light enough to move up and down the streets? Tony knew of a company in Ohio that made blimps out of rubber, the perfect material for any weather. When he called the company and showed them his sketches, they agreed to make what Tony wanted. Still, how would Tony make his big puppets move? Then Tony had an idea from an Indonesian rod puppet in his toy collection. So that's the Indonesian rod puppet right there. And that was his inspiration. On Thanksgiving Day, Tony's creatures, some as high as 16 feet, spilled into the streets, and the crowds cheered wildly. Everyone's excited. Part puppet, part balloon, the air-filled rubber bags wobbled down the avenues, propped up by wood sticks. But now the sidewalks were so packed with people that only those in the first few rows could really see the parade. Tony realized his puppets would have to be even bigger and heavier off the ground. And though the sticks helped to steer the puppets, they were stiff and heavy. Tony wanted his balloons to articulate, to move and gesture more like puppets. But how? With a marionette, the controls are above and the puppet hangs down. So look at this. This is his balloons. And then this over here is him figuring out how to make it. With normal puppets, the strings hang above and hold up the puppet. Like that. Let's figure out how he finished this. But what? The controls were below and the puppet could rise up. So here's Tony figuring it out. The strings are below it instead. During the next year, Tony set his new idea into motion. This time he asked the company in Ohio to make balloons out of rubberized silk, as strong as rubber, but lighter than rubber alone. Most important, Tony ordered the balloons to be filled not just with air, but with helium too. Since helium is lighter than air, it would make the balloons rise. Once the puppets were completed, they were deflated and shipped back to Tony in New York. Tony did not know if everything would go as planned. It was still dark on Thanksgiving morning when Tony filled the balloons with helium, tethering them down with sandbags. By 1 p.m., the sidewalks were packed with people ready for the parade. Then, one by one, Tony cut the lines to the sandbags. And it says right here, "Let's have a parade." Hooray. Oh, wow, look at this. Everybody's holding it up all the way down here. Let's read down here. It says, "And the magnificent upside-down marionettes rose up to the skies." How cool. Nodding and waving to the crowds below, they sailed past Central Park. They sailed down Broadway. They shimmied and swayed through canyons of New York City. Isn't that cool? High above the crowds, they flounced in the afternoon wind, pulling the rope handlers this way and that. Yet with heave-ho, the balloons gestured and articulated like wild puppets, and the crowd screamed for more. After the balloons were eased under the L, they ended in front of Macy's at Tony's Watertown windows. It was a parade New Yorkers would never forget. And from that day on, every Thanksgiving morning, crowds have lined the sidewalks of New York City to see what new balloons would rise to the skies for Macy's famous parade. Tony Sarge, the puppeteer who loved to figure out how to make things move, had set the stage with a little rigging for a puppet to be anything anyone could ever imagine it to be. There's the parade right there. And there's Tony figuring it out. What a great book. The end. I loved this book. It's called Balloons Over Broadway. I hope y'all have a great day today. Happy Tuesday, and we'll see y'all again tomorrow. Bye-bye, friends.